Good afternoon. This is the video recorded deposition of Carlton Jones, taken on behalf of the petitioner in the matter of Wesley J. Hensley versus City of Tulare. The case is venued in the Superior Court of California and for the County of Tulare. Case number is 273730. This deposition is being held at 108 West Center Avenue, Visalia, California. The date is December 20th, 2018. The video operator is Lauren D. Bogart. I'm here with PES Video Service. Our main office is located in Fresno, California. The court reporter is Tammy Mendoza of Moore Court Reporters, located here in Visalia, California. We are going on the record at approximately 1:18 p.m. Will the counsel please state their appearances for the record?
Michael Lampe appearing for the petitioner.
Mario Zamora appearing for the City of Tulare.
And Leonard Herr also appearing for City of Tulare.
Michael Smith for petitioner.
Court reporter, please swear the witness.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. Can you state your full name for the record, please?
Ivory Ernest Carlton Jones.
Mr. Jones, have you ever been deposed before?
Yeah.
On how many occasions?
4 or 5.
Can you tell me, in general, what types of cases you've been deposed in?
Like, what do you mean, like civil or criminal?
Well, you wouldn't have a deposition in a criminal case, but in a civil case, there could be all kinds of different things. So just, if it was a contract case, personal injury case, could have been a claim that was filed against a public entity, divorce, anything.
There was a couple of like employment issue cases. I think one civil. And I don't remember the other ones, a long time ago.
All right, well, let me go over kind of the ground rules with you today so that there's no misunderstanding. You understand that the oath that you just took is the same oath that you would take in a courtroom?
Yeah.
For that reason, it's important that you answer my questions as accurately as possible. So I'm going to ask you to do a few things. One is, let me finish my question before you begin your answer, and I'll try to let you finish your answer before I begin my next question. The reason I say that is we tend to talk over each other. You'll see where I'm headed with the question. You want to give me the answer, but let me get the record straight before we get the answer on the record. Fair enough?
Yep.
The other thing is you have to answer audibly. The reporter cannot take down nods of the head, and the colloquial use of uh-huh and does not work for the record. So whenever possible, please say yes or no. If the answer is yes or no, you're obviously free to expound upon the answer. Understand that?
Yes.
Are you represented by counsel here today?
By our city attorney.
Is your understanding he's representing you personally at this deposition?
He represents the city.
That's why I'm asking the question. I know he represents the city. My question is, are you personally represented by counsel here today as you understand it?
It's my understanding that this is a matter against the City of Tulare, correct? So that's what he's here for.
Okay. So
and that's what I'm here for,
okay,
correct?
So let's try it this way. You understand that you're entitled to have legal counsel here to represent you today if you choose to do so. Do you understand that? Separate and apart from the city. You're not the city.
No, I'm good with him. Just
okay.
like it is.
That's fine.
No one else is here with me.
Is it your understanding that in addition to representing the City of Tulare, Mr. Zamora is representing you personally today?
No.
Okay, fair enough. What's your current occupation?
I'm a firefighter with the City of Fresno.
And how long have you been employed by the City of Fresno?
16 years.
Always as a firefighter?
Yes.
What's your current rank?
Engineer.
You're currently the president of the Fresno City Firefighters Union as well, is that correct?
No.
Were you ever the president of the Fresno City Firefighters Union?
Yes.
when did you cease being the president?
December of 2016.
Would it surprise you to know that if you access the website for the firefighters union, it still shows you as the president?
Would I be surprised to know that?
Yes.
No.
Have you ever sued the city of Fresno?
I filed suit, but we settled it.
What was the settlement in that case?
What do you mean?
How much you settled for?
That's none of your business.
Well, actually it is, so you can tell me, or we can go in front of a judge and I'll make my case and you can make your case, and if the judge orders you to tell me, you'll have to pay the legal fees for bringing you into court. Is that what you want to do?
Well, it's public record, right?
It is a public record, yeah.
And you have every right to get it from the president.
I understand that. I'm asking you how much you settled the case for.
I really don't remember.
Do you remember, was it more than $50,000?
I don't think so.
But it could be more than 50, but you think it was less?
I think it was, well, after attorney's fees, I think it was less than 50,000.
Before you
I
had...
don't remember.
That's fine, but I'm entitled to test your recollection, because part of this whole process is
You're
to see how
talking
well...
numbers and exact, and that was years ago.
Okay,
So
what you're going to let me do is finish my question. Remember the ground rules, okay? Is it your testimony that you believe the settlement was for more than $50,000, but after the legal fees it was less than $50,000?
no, I think it was less than $50,000
That-
altogether.
The gross settlement.
Right.
But you can't remember how much.
No.
Do you
I know I got a lot less than $50,000.
Oh, all right, well, that's helpful. A lot less than $50,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Does $19,999 sound about right?
I don't know.
We'll come back to that in a few minutes. As a 16-year public employee, I suppose I should ask you, before you became a firefighter for the city of Fresno, what was your employment?
I was a firefighter for the City of Tulare
How long?
for 8 years.
And before that?
I was a student.
All right. So you've been 24 years a public employee, is that correct?
Yes.
And you served some period of time as the president of the Fresno Firefighters Union, correct?
Yes.
How long?
A 1-2-year term.
1-2-year term? As a 24-year public employee, what is your current understanding regarding the public's right to access matters contained in your personnel files?
The public's right?
Yes.
I don't know.
You have no idea?
No.
Do you think that members of the general public can go down to the City of Fresno and say, we want to look at Carlton Jones' personnel file?
Like members from the general public? I don't know how that works. Like if you're doing a background investigation on me, I'm sure you'll have access to it. Or,
Well, what if I just walked over there and said, I want to look at your personnel file? Do you think the city would give it to me?
I don't know. You'd have to do that.
And you served as the union president for 2 years for the Fresno Firefighters Union, correct?
Yep.
And as the president of the Firefighters Union, did you ever gain any understanding regarding the public's right to access your members' personnel files?
We never had that issue.
So, as far as you know, anybody can get the personnel files of an employee of the City of Fresno, correct?
That's not as far as I know. I told you I don't know what the public's access would be to. I'm sure there's some information that they couldn't get, but that depends on what's in your personnel file.
Well, what information, as you understand it today, could the public access, and what information could it not access?
Like they couldn't access any medical stuff, but they could find out how much we make.
Well, what if, for example, there was an investigation that was conducted by the City of Fresno into allegations of misconduct by you? Would the public have access to that information?
I don't know.
I'm going to show you a document that's been marked as Exhibit 16. I'd like for you to review it, and when you've had a chance to do so, let me know.
This is the email you sent me?
This is the correspondence that was sent to a number of people, including you, yesterday.
Right.
You have read this before?
Uh-huh.
Don't mark that, please.
If it's exactly the email you sent me,
Yes.
then yeah, I've seen it.
Okay. When was the first time that you reviewed this letter?
Yesterday.
Do you remember the time?
No.
I'll tell you that it was transmitted electronically at 11:54 a.m. Does that refresh your recollection as to when you saw it?
No.
Have you discussed the contents of this correspondence with anyone before your appearance here today?
With this email?
This is actually a letter.
Right.
There was an email that went with this, but this was an attachment. So, just for the record, Exhibit 16 you have read, correct?
Right.
You're familiar with the contents, correct?
Right.
My question is, have you discussed the contents of this correspondence with anybody prior to today?
We didn't talk after this, huh? We talked before? Then no.
All right, so just for the record, you asked Mr. Zamora a question. He nodded affirmatively, and that helped you with your answer. Is that correct?
Right.
All right. So you haven't talked to Heather Phillips about this?
No.
You haven't talked to anybody?
No.
Have you had any email communication or other written communication with anyone concerning the contents of Exhibit 16 before today?
No.
All right, let's look at the second paragraph. I'll read this into the record. Again, this is addressed to Mr. Zamora. As we discussed, Tulare City Councilman Carlton Jones has distributed to members of the general public a confidential investigative report relating to the Tulare Police Department prepared by former Sacramento County Sheriff John McGinnis. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Is that a true statement?
No.
It's not a true statement?
Would other council members and city staff be considered members of the general public?
Yes.
Then yeah.
So you have distributed a confidential investigative report by John McGinnis to third parties, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
All right. Tell me everybody that you've distributed that to, either electronically or in hard copy.
Every single?
Every single. Yes.
I'm answering you. Every council member,
Okay.
including one of the new council members, the ex-city manager, a portion of it to a Channel 30 reporter, and then I posted a portion of it in a Facebook post. And that was it.
Nobody else?
Nope.
So when you say all council members, was this the council prior to the November election?
Yes.
So that would include Dave Macedo, correct?
Yes.
Jose Segala,
Yes.
Maritza Castellanos,
Yes.
and Greg Nunley, correct?
Yes.
In addition to that, you've testified that you have given a copy of this report to the ex-city manager. Would that be Joe Carlini?
No.
Who?
Willard Epps.
Willard Epps?
Yes.
And you said one current council member.
Dennis Maderos.
How did you transmit this to David Macedo? By email or by handing him a copy?
I handed them a copy, and then they gave them back. They didn't keep them. Like a copy.
So,
A printed copy.
when did you give him a printed copy?
This was in closed session.
Well, you could still tell them when you gave it to
Yeah,
them.
it was during a closed session at a city council meeting.
What was the date of the meeting?
I don't remember the exact date.
Can you give me an estimate?
Like one of our November meetings, like the first meeting in November or the last meeting. I think it was November.
Where did you get a copy of this report?
From our ex-city attorney.
Heather Phillips?
Yes.
And she gave this to you when? Shortly before the November council meeting?
Probably between the last meeting in October and the first meeting in November.
So this would have been at a period of time when Heather Phillips was no longer the city attorney for the city of Tulare.
Right.
Why did she give it to you? Did you ask for it?
Uh-huh.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
How did you ask for it?
I asked her if the city of Tulare had that report, and she told me yes. And I asked our city staff if they had the report, and Janice told me no. Heather told me that she sent it to Janice, and I asked her if she can send me a copy of it.
And when did this happen?
Now I checked my emails to check when I got it from her.
Sure.
So late October.
What's the date?
Oh no. So October. October 9th.
October 9 of 2018? Is that a yes?
Yes.
So as I understand your testimony, you called Heather Phillips on or before October 9, 2018, and you asked for a copy of the McGinnis report, which she sent to you on October 9 by way of an email, correct?
Yes.
And you still have that email, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to email that to Mr. Zamora so that that can be produced for the purpose of this deposition. Do you have a problem with that?
Is that okay with you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that right now since you've got it called up? Let's email it to Mr. Zamora. Email it to me.
So if this email has a disclaimer that it's not supposed to be shared except by who it's sent to, can I send it to you?
Send it to me. Yeah.
Just waiting for it to load the attachments.
Is the attachment a lengthy attachment?
Yeah.
Like more than 100 pages?
Yeah, it was more than
One minute. Cell phone's causing some interference with the microphone. Your cell phone, sir. If you just set it to the side. Thank you.
All right, if it's just loading, do you need to do anything else in terms of punching buttons at this point?
Do I need to?
Yes. I don't want you to be distracted, so if that's
I'm not
just
distracted. I'm just reviewing if it loaded everything. Are you
Oh, okay, that's fine. When you called Ms. Phillips and you asked her to send you a copy of the McGinnis report, did you ask for any other information during that phone call?
I didn't even call it the McGinnis report. I just asked if she had the report from the investigation because no one from the city had it.
When you
asked
say
if I could have it, I didn't call it by the McGinnis report.
When you say that you asked for the report, did you specifically reference the investigative report relating to Captain Inklin and Lieutenant Boatman?
No.
What did you ask for?
I asked just for the investigation as to whatever it contained, and it was into Wes.
Well, the McGinnis report is not a report on Chief Hensley.
I didn't ask for the McGinnis report.
I know. You said you wanted the report on Wes. Is that what you asked for?
Well, it was just the report, whatever it was. I asked if she had a copy of it.
But if you asked me for the report, I'd have to ask a follow-up question. What report are we talking about? Did she ask you any follow-up question?
No.
And she sent you a lengthy email, which you're sending to Mr. Zamora now, correct? Is that a yes?
Yes.
How many attachments are on that email?
I'm just waiting for it to load again.
Why don't we let it load? I'll move on to some other questions. We can come back to that. How's that? When you called Ms. Phillips and you asked for the report, did you specify what report you were asking for?
Like the investigation or yeah, it was about the investigation that went into Chief West.
Wes Hensley?
Yeah.
And why were you asking for that in October of 2018?
I think we had a meeting, and it was the conversation in that meeting that that something was said that in the meeting that I wanted to see the report.
Did Heather Phillips at any time advise you that that was a confidential personnel matter and that you were not entitled to see it?
No.
Have you ever made any public statements that investigations of that nature are confidential and you're not entitled to see them?
What do you mean?
Read the question back, please.
Have you ever made any public statements that investigations of that nature are confidential and you're not entitled to see them?
Have I ever made
Yes.
a public statement that what do you,
Mr. Jones, this is a pretty straightforward question.
Well, no, it's not. You're
If you don't-
explain the nature you're talking
No,
about.
you can just say, I don't understand the question, and I'll move on, if that's the case. Do you not understand the question?
Well,
Have you ever made a public statement indicating that investigations of this sort are not open to the public and you're not entitled to see them?
what's
That-
this sort? What do you mean? What's
that
the nature?
the investigation into Chief Hensley specifically.
That I'm not entitled to see that?
Yes.
An investigation of Chief Hensley or of an employee?
An investigation of Chief Hensley or any other employee.
Well, this one I was given. So if I wasn't given a report and I was told that I'm not allowed to see it, I'm not allowed to see it. But this one,
Great.
it was given to me.
In my world, that's called non-responsive. I didn't ask whether you were given the report. Listen to the question, please. Have you ever made a public statement where you said, Carlton Jones said, hey, these are highly confidential investigations. Just because I'm a city councilman, I don't get to see them. Anything along those lines. Have you ever done that to the best of your recollection?
Well, if there was a report where I was told I couldn't see it, I would make that statement.
You're not listening
But
to the
if,
question.
You're cutting me off when I'm answering you now.
Go ahead.
But if there was a report and I asked to see it and it was given to me, then it was given to me. I've asked for tons of reports. Sometimes they say you can't have it. I asked for this one and it was given to me.
It wasn't given to you by the city attorney, was it?
No.
It wasn't given to you by the HR director, was it?
She said she didn't have it.
Wasn't given to you by the HR director, was it?
Well, she didn't tell me she couldn't give it to me. She told me she didn't have it.
It wasn't given to you by the city manager, was it?
I never asked him for it.
So let me get this straight. You never asked the city manager for the report.
No.
You asked Janice, the HR director. She said she didn't have it.
I didn't ask her for it. I asked her if she had it.
And she said no.
She didn't have it.
Did you ask Mr. Zamora for it?
I didn't ask. No, I didn't ask him for it.
Well, why did you ask Heather Phillips for it?
Because the city said they didn't have it. And so I asked her, I knew she had it. And she said, yeah, I have it. She told me she sent it to the city. And I asked if she could send me a copy of it. And
Well,
she did.
But she sent you a lot more than that, didn't she?
What do you mean?
Well, this email that you're sending to Mario Zamora right now, it's got a lot more than just a McGinnis report in it, doesn't it?
I didn't ask for just the McGinnis report.
What
I
else
asked
did you
for
ask
the
for?
report, and this is what she sent me. I didn't ask for it to be itemized, or I didn't tell her specifics of what I wanted. I didn't know what was in it. I just asked her to send me the report, and this is what I received.
Did she say anything in response?
No?
Did she send it right away?
I don't think so. It took a few days to get it.
Did you have subsequent conversations with her after the first conversation?
I don't think so. Like about that matter, no, I don't think so.
Did you talk to her about anything else?
Yeah,
Such as?
it's none of your business.
Well, how would you describe your relationship with Heather Phillips today?
Friends?
Have you ever had a romantic relationship?
No.
How long have you been friends?
Probably 9 or 10 years.
How did you first meet?
She was an attorney that represented our fire union.
So you met her through the union?
Uh-huh.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And you've known her 9 or 10 years?
Yes.
Has she ever represented you in any capacity?
Yes.
As an attorney?
Yes.
In what capacity?
That's none of your business.
Actually, it is. This is actually my business, and I'll take you to court on this one if I have to, Carlton, so pick your poison. What do you want to do?
I picked that was my attorney-client privilege.
Well, that's fine. So if there's an attorney-client privilege, you're entitled to assert that. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm entitled to know when the representation commenced, when it ended, if it's ended, whether it was continuous. So when did the attorney...
It was when I met her, and when I was around 2008 or 9,
Right.
and it ended then shortly after.
All right, so she was your attorney in 2008 or 2009, correct?
She was never my attorney. She was the attorney for our union.
Okay. All right, fine. She was never your lawyer, correct?
No.
Is that a...
Yes. No. She was never my attorney.
Thank you. All right. So we've gotten past the attorney-client privilege issue. So, my next question is, you're still in contact with her, correct?
Yes.
When was the last time you spoke with her?
Spoke with her?
Yes.
Oh, it's been a while.
Been a while?
Yeah.
Did you speak with her after October of 2018 when you asked for the report?
Not by phone, just through another email.
All right. Do you communicate with her regularly by email?
No, not regularly.
How many email addresses do you have for her?
Do I have for her?
Yes.
Just one.
Is that the one that you always use?
Uh-huh.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
How many telephone numbers do you have for her?
Two phone numbers.
Is that an office phone and a cell phone?
I have them listed as work and mobile.
What are the two numbers?
Am I supposed to give him her phone numbers?
I mean,
I can. Do I have to?
He's not representing you. We've already established that.
I'm talking to Mario.
Yeah, I know you're talking to Mario.
well, I don't think it's an issue on the work number. If you think there's a concern about the mobile number, then he'll do the same thing. You'll go before a judge. The judge will decide if she has some kind of privacy interest or something to not give the mobile number.
All right, I'm not giving you her cell number. Her office number is 559-268-7768.
Remember a minute ago you testified that you only gave the documents you received from Heather Phillips included more than the McGinnis report, correct?
I don't know what it was called. You're calling it the McGinnis report,
There was a report issued by John McGinnis.
right?
You've seen that, correct?
Yeah,
It's a multi-page document, correct?
right.
Heather Phillips transmitted more than just that to you on October 9, 2018, didn't she?
I thought it was all together, but I'll check and see if they were called the McGinnis report.
Before you checked, let me ask this question. You testified that you transmitted to the following people the information that you got from Heather Phillips: Dave Macedo, Jose Segala, Maritza Castellanos, Willard Epps, Dennis Medeiros, correct?
Yes.
But you transmitted it to nobody else, correct?
No, there was the Channel 30 reporter,
All right. And a portion on the Facebook post.
and let me see.
Was there anyone else?
I'll check. I still have one. So I shared it with my brother Ty.
Your brother Ty.
That's why I sent the Facebook image to. And Brian Johnson was the reporter from Channel 30.
What did you send to Brian Johnson at Channel 30?
I sent him the entire report.
When you say the entire report, are you talking about the McGinnis report or something more than that?
Everything I got, I sent it to him.
Everything you got?
Mm-hmm.
Great. I want you to send that to me as well as Mario. You've released it to the world now, so I want to see a copy of that. Have you already transmitted that to Mario?
Yeah.
He'll get me a copy. When did you send it to Brian Johnson at Channel 30?
December 15th.
Why did you do that?
To show that the things that you would say at our council meetings was a lie, and the things that Wes Hensley would say about our relationship was a lie.
What did I say that was a lie at a council meeting?
You said that Wes was fired because of something I did. You said that I called Joe Carlini. I told him to go F himself. You said that Wes was fired for investigating my credit card usage. You said that I wanted to go after Wes, and none of that was true.
None of that was true?
No.
Have you ever said anything disparaging about Wes?
No.
Never?
Like today?
What is it about the word never that is confusing you? Have you ever said anything?
Well, prior to you becoming Wes's attorney, I had the utmost respect for him.
Have you ever said anything disparaging
today,
about Wes Hensley?
I think that's different. So probably, yeah.
Okay, probably. Can
Yeah.
you remember anything that you said about Wes?
No, not really. It's not about Wes. It's more about you.
More about me.
Yeah.
Did you post, like, within the last 3 or 4 days to your brother? Oh, and don't get me started on the dirty ex-police chief? Did you post that?
Yeah.
Was that about me?
Well, your representation of him.
So, when you post, oh, and don't get me started on the dirty ex-police chief, you don't mean to disparage West, you mean to disparage Mike Lampe. In your mind, that's about me.
Well, if you represent a Wes that I didn't know, and if Wes is what you say he is, and the things where you stand before a meeting and you say Wes says this, then yeah, that's crap.
Okay,
and
so
that's
you
a very dirty person.
So you were disparaging West within the last 3 or 4 days by posting this.
So if I call a liar and you call that disparaging, then that's how you see it.
If I told you that 5 people at City Hall have testified under oath that they heard Joe Carlini say that he had you on credit card fraud or something to that effect, would that surprise you?
If you said that,
yes,
nothing would surprise me.
Would it surprise you if they testified to that under oath?
No, I wouldn't care.
All right. Let me ask you this: Do you think that everybody at City Hall who heard Joe Carlini say that he had you on credit card fraud or something to that effect, you think they'd all be lying?
I wouldn't care.
That's not my question. I
It
didn't
wouldn't
ask.
matter to me at all.
Great.
You're involved in it.
Do you
and-
think they'd be lying?
Well, I don't know what they said. I don't know
Okay.
what anybody told you.
Sure. Well, I'll give you an idea of what they said. So, take a look at what's been marked as Exhibit 12 in this proceeding. This is a contemporaneous memo taken by Chantel Adney regarding a
Chantel Adney is a bigger liar than you are.
all right.
So I really wouldn't care what she said.
Okay, what about Roxanne Yoder? Is she a bigger liar than I am?
No, you're a way bigger liar than Roxanne.
Okay, is Roxanne Yoder a liar?
I've known her to lie.
Okay, so Chantel Adney's a bigger liar than I am, which I guess in your mind is a pretty big liar, right?
Right.
I mean, in terms of lying on 1 to 10, where do I stand? Am I an 8, 9, 10, 11?
Nah, you'd be about a 9.
I'm a 9 on the scale of 1 to 10. All right, Chantel's a 10?
Oh, she's probably a 15.
Okay, all right, and where would Roxanne stand on the lying scale?
I don't know. You know what? I've only known Roxanne to like be dishonest on a couple of occasions.
Okay, so where would you put her?
Like an opportunist liar.
Okay.
Like a 3 or 4.
Okay. What about Darlene Thompson?
I don't know.
Do you think she's a liar?
Nah, she never really lied to me.
What about Matt Machado?
He's he's a liar.
Okay, where does he sit on the scale?
Like a 5.
He's a 5.
Yeah.
Okay. What about Joe Carlini?
Yeah, Joe can lie.
Where does he sit on the scale?
I don't know. I have no idea. Joe's like a kid that lies to get out of trouble.
Well, you've said that Chantel's like a 15. I'm a 9.
Yeah.
Matt's a 5.
Yeah.
Roxanne's, I think you said 3 or 4?
Yeah. I put
right.
Joe right around where Roxanne's at.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't have an opinion on Darlene?
Nah. No.
So what about Wes? Where would you put him on the liar scale?
I don't think I put Wes. I think Wes put himself on the liar scale.
Oh, okay. So where is he?
Like a 3.
Okay. Is there anybody at City Hall who you think would not lie?
I don't think there's a person alive that won't lie.
That include you?
Oh yeah. I've lied tons of times.
Have you said anything today that's not true?
No. No.
Would you lie under oath?
No. You lie when you're scared. And nothing in here scares me.
Okay, so back to the people that you've transmitted this to. I'm going to show you a document that we've marked as Exhibit 17. If you review that, oh, Mark, give me that one back. That's mine. Thanks.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that one. That was just recently.
So you transmitted some confidential information to somebody named Sharon
Yeah.
100. Who was that?
She's a mutual friend of me and Wes that really had an issue with the contentment between our relationship, and I saw her at the grand opening of I saw her at a grand opening for a new burger restaurant, and I told her that I would send her the information that showed that I wasn't going after Wes, and so I sent it to her. It's Sharon Allison, but I think she got married.
So her name is Sharon Allison,
Yeah.
Allison.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
I'm going to represent to you that this document that you transmitted to her on December 14, which was only 6 days ago, that you forgot about until I reminded you. You transmitted this at 10:29 in the morning, and this is a lengthy document. It's 12 pages in length, and we've redacted everything after the opening paragraph to protect the privacy rights of a number of people. When you transmitted that document, do you recall what that document is, looking at it?
The one that I sent to her? Do you
This
have it?
document right here. Do you recall what that is?
I can look. and
No,
see.
I don't want to talk about, I want your recollection now. I'm not interested in you going back and reviewing the whole document. I would have given it to you.
I think I sent her the email from Heather and the interview of one of the officers or a couple of the officers.
Is that all you sent her?
I think so.
You didn't send her very much then.
I don't think so.
All right, well, let's take a look then at Exhibit 18, which was sent to the same, also sent to Sharon at 12:55. So this would have been roughly 2.5 hours later. And I will represent to you on Exhibit 18 that this email contained a total of 41 pages. Those 41 pages included a report from McGinnis Solutions, Inc. Do you see that?
Uh-huh.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
All right. That's what I've been calling the McGinnis Report. If I continue to call that the McGinnis Report today, will you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So you sent her more than just what's the 12 pages on Exhibit 17. You turned around 2.5 hours later and you sent her another at least 41 pages, didn't you?
Right.
Did you send her the entire McGinnis Report? The reason I ask is if
No,
you
I
look...
don't think so, because it's I don't know if it's all the McGinnis report, but the email was a lot more than 50 to 60 pages.
Yeah, the McGinnis Report, if you look at the attachments, look at Exhibit 18 for a moment. Do you see where it says attachments up at the very top?
Yeah.
And it says McGinnis Solutions, Inc. Do you see that?
Right.
And it says Investigative Report Part 1 of 3, and it's a PDF.
Right.
It appears that only Part 1 was transmitted on this email. Do you know whether or not you transmitted Parts 2 and 3 to Sharon Allison at any point in time?
No.
But you are prepared, now that your recollection has been refreshed, to testify that you did in fact send 2 emails to Sharon Allison 6 days ago, one of those being a 12-page document that appears to be prepared by Heather Phillips, the former city attorney, and another one of which appears to be at least a portion of the McGinnis Report, correct?
Correct.
Is there anybody else you sent this to that you may have forgotten?
No.
You're sure of this?
Yeah, that was pretty recent, and I forgot I gave that to her. The other ones were, like I wouldn't, if I didn't see her, I wouldn't even send it to her. It was just part of our conversation. I told her I'd send her a report, but I did forget about it.
Have you ever offered to send that report to anybody else?
I was going to have a meeting with a couple of people and go over it.
Who was that?
Stephen Harold and Luis Hernandez.
Okay, Luis Hernandez is a reporter for the Times Delta, correct?
Yes.
And Steve Harrell, I think it's Harrell, he's a resident of Tulare, correct?
Yes.
And he's on the board of directors for the hospital district, correct?
Right, but that's not why I was going to go over it with
Just
him.
trying to identify who he is.
Right.
And his son, Chris Harrell, was a recent candidate for city council, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever offer to go over the report with Chris Harrell?
No, I asked Chris to set up the meeting with me and his dad. I wasn't going to show him unless he became a council member.
Well, if you weren't going to show it to him unless he became a council member, why are you showing it to Luis Hernandez or why did you want to show it to him at the Times Delta? Why did you show it to Brian Johnson at Channel 30 News? And why did you share it with Sharon Allison?
Well, why? Those have nothing to do why I wouldn't share it with Chris. I don't have a relationship with Chris. The only reason I would have shared it with him if he would become a council member.
Going back to Exhibit 17, the 11 pages, which start out here as a summary of what's going on with the chief who was on paid admin leave. Do you see that?
Yes.
Who is it, as you understand it, that authored the text, that authored the 11 pages that I've redacted most of?
Heather Phillips.
And who was this sent to?
To me. You mean who was this sent to?
Initially.
She sent it to me.
Well, no. This obviously was prepared long before you asked for it. You've testified that you received this on October 9, 2018. The
Correct.
chief hadn't been on paid administrative leave since March 30 of 2018 when he was terminated. Excuse me, March 20. So who was it? Who did you understand she was sending the initial email to?
I don't know if she sent the initial email to. She sent this to me.
But did you strip out the sender and the initial receiver of this email?
I don't know if there was a sender and initial receiver. When I forwarded, I didn't include Heather's information, so
Why?
I deleted all that.
Why?
Why did I delete Heather's information?
Yes.
I didn't want to give Sharon Heather's email.
Why?
Same reason I wouldn't give you your cell phone number.
Wasn't it her office email?
It's the only email I have.
Well, you can access her office email online. So you were trying to protect Heather Phillips.
No, I'm not trying to protect her. I'm just not giving Sharon Heather's email.
Did Heather ask you to make sure that her email was off of any documents that were forwarded to third parties?
No.
Did you tell her when you asked for the report that you were going to be giving this to the news media and
No.
other people?
No.
Did she ask?
No.
Did she ever tell you that this is confidential information that shouldn't be shared with the public?
No.
Did you ever have an understanding that this was confidential information that shouldn't be shared with the public?
Recently, but not when I was giving it to a bunch of people in the public.
When did you recently become aware of the fact that this was confidential information?
The day before yesterday?
The day before yesterday?
Uh-huh.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
So it's your testimony that the first time that Carlton Jones became aware that this was confidential information that should not be shared with the public was on December 18, 2018, correct?
Was that the day we talked? You sent me an email and I had taken it down the day before that. So the day I talked to Rob and the day I talked to you.
It would have been the day the council meeting.
The 18th.
And that's the first time that you knew that this was confidential information.
Right. Up
Heather-
until then, I thought it was public record.
Heather Phillips never told you this was confidential information.
No.
Marking as Exhibit 20 a radio interview that you gave to K-Tip Radio in October of 2017. And I'm just going to ask you to focus on a portion of that.
I'm sorry, Mike, what number is this?
It's
20.
Exhibit 20. If you look at Exhibit 20, at page 5, beginning at line 22. I'll read this into the record and then I'll ask some questions. Now, if there's issues involved in the operations, like within the police department, council members don't get involved in that, and they shouldn't get involved in that, and I'm not going to get involved in that. That's but should be the responsibility of our city manager and our attorneys to handle those types of issues. Do you see that? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you
Sorry.
recall giving that statement?
I sure do.
And when you said that you weren't to be involved in the operations within the police department, what were you communicating? What did you have in mind there?
Like, council members don't get involved in the operations of the police department. Like, I don't decide where we hire, fire, who gets disciplined, who doesn't, how they, the relationship between the city manager and the police chief. That's none of my business.
So in October of 2017, you knew that as a council member you were not to be involved in the police department's operations, correct?
Correct.
And you know that as you sit here today, correct?
Yeah.
And has that continuously been your understanding between October of 2017 and today?
Yep.
And in October 2017, you knew that as a council member you were not to be involved in police personnel matters, correct?
Correct.
And you know that as you sit here today, correct? And has that continuously been your understanding between 2017 and today?
So a personnel matter, as if I can't complain against a cop?
That's not a personnel matter.
That's not a personnel matter?
You can file a complaint.
Right. So wouldn't that be a personnel matter?
A personnel matter would be accessing a police officer's personnel file.
No, I'll never do that.
And you understand that you had no right to do that.
Well, I wouldn't. Never have.
Did you understand you had no right to do that?
To access a police officer's personnel file?
Yes.
No.
No what?
I wouldn't do that.
So
I
my
wouldn't
question.
ask for that.
So my
So
question.
you're asking me if I understand that I have no right to do that?
That's correct.
I didn't know if I had a right to do that or not. I just wouldn't do it.
Okay. So you've never had an understanding whether it was okay for you as a city council person to access the personnel records of employees at the city, whether they're in the police department or another department. You've never had that understanding?
Where would I get that understanding from? What do you mean?
Could you answer my question?
As a council member, and I'm just trying to understand your question. As a council member, I would never access a police officer's personnel file.
You've told us that, and I've
Right.
told you it doesn't answer my question, so I'll try one
But
more time.
if it's my right, I've never crossed that bridge. I've never been there. But I wouldn't do that.
No one has ever told you in all the years...
I've never asked.
Time out. Doesn't make any difference whether you've asked.
I've never heard that before.
Okay. So, you've never had any type of training as a council member with the HR department or anybody where you were told, hey, you as a council member do not have the right to access personnel information of city employees. No one's ever told you that.
No.
City attorneys never told you that.
That I have no right. I wouldn't even know why they would tell me that. Like it's not part of our.
My question is this.
It's not part of your. Well, you're a council member. I mean, we have 2 council members now. We don't tell them that you can't access personnel files. That's stupid. I've been a council member for 10 years. I've never heard that.
All right. So, as you sit here today, up until 2 days ago, you were unclear as to...
This wasn't part of someone's personnel file.
You got to let me finish the question.
All right, sorry. You're right.
Well, sure, that's part of someone's personnel. What do you think that
Well,
is?
I didn't know that.
All
I
right.
didn't get it from someone's personnel file.
No, you got it from somebody who wasn't even the city attorney.
Right.
You went outside the chain of command to get it.
Right. I didn't.
Because
I didn't access the personnel file.
No, but you went outside the chain of command to get it.
No, I didn't.
Sure, you did.
Why would
She's
you
not
say that?
this. She's not the city attorney. Why would you contact Heather Phillips other than she's your friend to get a report that you knew damn well you weren't going to get out of the city?
No,
Why else would you do that?
I asked if we could have them.
And what were you told?
Yes.
By whom?
By Mario.
Mario told you that you could have that report?
Yes. We were in closed session when I distributed to every other council member. I wasn't told that they couldn't have it. I wasn't told that I couldn't have it.
And
So I brought them. And then when we were in another closed session when I passed it to two of the other council members.
so you had this report and you showed this report to people in a closed session with council present.
Yes.
And no one ever told you that that report should not be delivered to Channel 30 News or to the Visalia Times Delta or to Sharon Allison or to your brother or to any of the other people you distributed it to. No one ever told you that.
No.
You thought this was just open for the public.
I gave it to the news media.
I understand that.
So I didn't give it to the news media to say, hey, keep this a secret.
Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we, we've been going for about an hour and 10 minutes. Let's stop, take a break.
Off the record at 2:20.
So I'm
We're back on the record at 2:31.
Now, Mr. Jones, you testified that you asked Janice Avila for a copy of the report, correct?
No, I asked her if she had a copy of the report.
All right. And when did you ask her?
It was after the meeting, and so it would be prior to October.
So, say September of 2018 approximately?
Yeah, maybe.
And where were you when you asked for the report?
I think we were in the closed session meeting.
And so this was a closed session meeting in approximately September of 2018, and you asked Janice Avila at the closed session meeting for a copy of the report, correct?
I asked her if she had the report.
All right. And was she in the closed session meeting?
Yes.
And when you asked her if she had the report, did you say anything other than had the report?
No.
And what did she know what you were talking about, or did she ask you for clarification?
No, she just said she didn't have it, or they don't have it, or she didn't have it.
All right. Who else was in the room at that time?
It was a council meeting, so it was all of the council members, our attorney, and Janice. I think that's it, but I don't remember.
And your attorney would be Mr. Zamora?
Yes.
So as best you recall, there were 7 people in the room. The 5 council members, Janice Avila, and Mr. Zamora.
I'm trying to. I don't remember if all the council members were there. We were talking about the report, and I remember.
Well, the council itself has a privilege about what you're talking about. So I don't want you to get into any discussion about what the council was talking about.
Okay.
Just want to know about your request for the report. You asked for the report. Janice said she did not have it. Either some or all of the council members were present. Janice was present. Mr. Zamora was present, correct?
I asked Janice if she had the report, and she said no.
All right. And to the best of your knowledge, were there any other witnesses to this exchange?
What do you mean?
Was anybody else in the room that heard this, your request for the report, and Janice's response that no, we don't have it?
No.
Okay. Did you have any follow-up questions of her after that?
No.
And it was after that meeting where you went outside of the city channels and went back to the former city attorney, Heather Phillips, and asked her to send you the report, correct?
Yeah.
And was that by way of a telephone call?
I don't remember if it was by phone call or like by text. It was either one. I think I called her and then texted her.
And did you have any discussion with Heather Phillips about getting the information, or did she just send you the information based on the text, or however you communicated your request?
What do you mean if I had any discussion?
Did you have any discussion with Heather Phillips regarding the propriety of you getting this information?
Other than asking for it?
That's correct.
No, I just asked for it.
And she sent it.
Yeah.
Have you ever specifically been told by anybody that it was okay to release this information, the information that you got from Heather Phillips, which included, but is not limited to, the information contained in Exhibits 19 and 20, 17, 18, and 19. This is the information that you've communicated now to Sharon Allison. It includes the 12 pages that were sent to her. It includes 41 pages of the McGinnis report. And it includes the, let's stick with those two for now. Has anyone ever specifically told you that it was okay for you to transmit the information that you transmitted in Exhibits 17 and 18 to third parties?
It was my understanding that that information was public information.
And where did you gain that understanding from?
From the closed session meeting when I was distributing it to council members.
And who told you it was public information?
I asked if this information can be distributed.
And who did you ask that of?
To our attorney, Mario.
To Mario Zamora.
Yeah.
And what did Mr. Zamora say?
Yes.
Who was in the room at that time?
Myself and all the council members, and I don't know who else was in the meeting. It
Was
may
he-
have been, Willard may have been there.
Was the entire council present?
Yes.
So the witnesses to this exchange would be you, the other four council members, Mario Zamora, and possibly Willard Epps, correct?
Yes.
Anybody else?
I don't remember who else was there. I don't know if Janice was there or not.
So possibly Janice.
Possibly.
And Willard, possibly.
Yeah.
Well, I've known Mr. Zamora for many, many years, and I'm going to be honest with you, I find it highly unlikely that he would have made the statement that you've just attributed to him, and we'll find out what everybody else remembers about that exchange. But before we depose everybody else, let's just get this out there, because you've already told me that you think Chantel's a 15 on a 1 to 10 lies scale. I'm a 9. Roxanne and Joe Carlini are 3 or 4. Matt Machado's a 5. Wes is a 3. Let's get everybody in here. On a 1 to 10 scale of lying, where would you put Jose Segala?
I don't know if he... I don't know, he's kind of like you.
Well, I'm a 9. Is that what he is?
Well, yeah, you say stuff like you'll say, I heard you said this, and I don't know if you may have heard it, but I think you know what you say is a lie.
Okay, so is Jose a 9 in your mind? Because this is going to be your word against, I think, a whole bunch of people's.
He's that's fine.
Okay.
Jose's just a POS in my book.
POS meaning piece of shit?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. You can characterize it any way you want,
Yeah.
but is he a 9 or is he a 10 or is he Chantel 15? Where is he?
Well, like Jose will ask, he will say stuff like, I heard Wes was investigating the mayor or I heard he, And that's not necessarily lying because I don't know. No, he lies.
Okay, so
Yeah, I don't. He's not as bad as you.
Okay.
But he definitely lies.
all right. So how bad is he?
I don't know.
7, 8?
What would you call him?
I think he's honest. Yeah. I've never had him lie to me.
Oh, okay. Then he'd be just like you then.
A 9?
Yeah.
What about Greg Nunley?
Oh my gosh. I don't know.
You've got an opinion on everybody else, but not on
Not
Greg?
everybody. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on Darlene. I don't have an opinion on Greg.
What about Marissa?
I don't know. I don't have an opinion on her as a liar. I don't know her to lie.
What about Willard Epps?
No, I don't know Willard to be a liar.
You think he's truthful?
Yeah.
He's the one guy so far, of all the city people we've talked about, that you're willing to say is truthful.
Well, if you ask me if I think Willard's ever lied, of course, yeah. But I think he has like a high moral compass.
I think he does too. I think just about everybody in the community would agree with that, actually.
Yeah.
All right, so
Who else is there? Macedo?
Dave Macedo, yeah.
I'd say about a 5.
Okay, so he lies quite a bit.
No, you lie quite a bit.
Okay, he lies sort of a lot, I guess. Okay, all right.
Half as much as you.
Okay. Well, actually, technically it'd be a 4.5, not a 5, but okay. So, out of everybody in the room that was there, you have no opinion on Greg and Maritza. What about Mario Zamora? What's your opinion of him?
I don't know yet. I don't have an opinion on him being a liar.
Okay. What about Heather Phillips? Do you have an opinion on her?
Well, I fired her.
Well, actually, you didn't fire her.
Yeah.
You voted not to fire her, as I recall.
Then there's another one of your lies.
You voted to fire her?
It was 5-0.
Well, I read something in the newspaper where you were opposed. You said I could swear that. It's not a lie. If I'm mistaken, I'll certainly cop to it. But I thought I read in the newspaper where
I
you...
can't tell you what you read in the newspaper. That's just what the reporter writes.
All right. Do you think she's a liar?
Nah, you know what? I don't know if she lied. We judged her performance as just being responsive to the council, and there were issues there, and those issues. I mean, our relationship as friends did not influence the issues of the decision I made for the city.
Fair enough. And by the way, I just figured out why I had that impression, so I'll apologize to you. I'm not doubting that you voted to fire her. I think what I read was that you were the odd man out on the decision to file the lawsuit against her law firm. I think it was a 4-1 vote. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
All right. That's what I was thinking, and I apologize. So your testimony is that you asked if the information could be made public, and Mr. Zamora told you that it could, correct?
No, I asked if I could share this information.
All right. And Mr. Zamora said yes?
Yeah.
And at that point, you thought you had the green light to share it with anybody that you wanted to, correct?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to look at another transcript of a radio interview. We've marked this as Exhibit 21. And again, we're not going to go through the whole thing, but I just want to focus on a portion of the radio interview. If you look at page 2, Hopper asked you some questions about Wes, and you responded. Can I give somebody a highlighted copy? It's not important. You responded at line... Well, let's start at line 12. You say, I did get my first update on where we are with that. That being the investigation of Chief Hensley. Okay?
No.
No?
Where do you read that at?
Well, the transcript is dated November 6, 2017. Okay?
Right.
And what you say is, I did get my first update on where we are with that, and I can say now that I do support the city manager's decision to, and what he's doing. It's all about Wes. Then you go on and say
where do you say that at?
Where Hopper says, hey, where's Wes? Anybody seen Wes?
Mm-hmm.
You see that?
Yes.
Is there another Wes in your universe, or could that possibly be Wes Hensley, do you think?
No, well, I mean, but you're saying that you're inserting all about West in my comments, not Hopper's.
Well, if you're talking about somebody else, please tell me who.
We're talking about the city and the department.
Yeah, who are we talking about here when you say I do support the city manager's decision and what he's doing? Who are we talking about?
The city manager.
The city manager's decision. What decision were you talking about?
Well, it was his direction for the department.
What direction?
His direction.
Wasn't this all about placing the chief on administrative leave?
Well, it was about placing Jones as the interim police chief.
Pardon?
It was about making Jones the interim police chief.
Okay. So I see where Wes Hensley's name is asked about by the interlocutor, in this case, Hopper. Right. Okay. I don't see Jones's name mentioned.
Well, I tried to stay away from it being specifically about Wes and about the well-being of our city.
Okay.
And reiterating my support for the city manager, as we should, and the direction he's taken our city.
So when he asked about Hopper, you responded about Mr. Jones. Is that your testimony?
No, I mean, you skipped a bunch of lines. When he asked about Wes, I said, Wes is still around and he's doing his thing.
That's correct.
That's it.
Yeah. And when you said, I did get my first update on where we are with that, what did you mean by that?
The department and how the city's doing, and about Jones being our interim,
okay,
and everyone doing well.
Fair enough. Skip down to line 16. You know those? They're very confidential investigations.
Right.
What did you mean by that?
Wes's investigation.
That was confidential?
Yeah.
Very confidential.
I didn't ask about it, how it was. I didn't want to know anything about that.
So at that point in time, at the time of this interview,
these are way before.
Let me just ask the question. You get a chance to respond. On November 6, 2017, it was your state of mind that the investigation into Mr. Hensley was very confidential, correct?
Right.
That changed, correct?
My opinion of that?
No. Your state of mind changed.
Yes.
All right. And your state of mind didn't change until Mr. Zamora told you it was okay to basically release the investigation, correct?
No. My state of mind as far as the investigation into Wes, or how I was tied into the investigation of Wes.
I don't even understand what the distinction is, but let me try it this way. When you said November 6, 2017, you know they're very confidential investigations. You see where you said that?
Right.
Okay. You don't dispute saying that, do you?
No.
Okay. That investigation was the investigation of Wes Hensley. It was the only investigation going on at the time, right?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So you were talking about the Hensley investigation.
I was talking about the Hensley investigation.
Fair enough. And at that moment in time, November 6, 2017, you subjectively believed that that investigation was very confidential, correct?
Well, it was.
That's not my question. I'm trying to find out what you believed at the time, what
I
you
get
believe,
what you're saying.
and what you believed 2 days ago,
So
and what happened in
So
between.
my understanding was that was very confidential.
Okay, where did you get the understanding from?
It was my understanding.
Where did you get it from?
What do you mean, where'd you get it from?
Well, I mean-
That's my understanding.
So-
So my understanding is that investigation was very confidential. Anytime we came into a meeting and people would ask, what's going on with Wes? It was none of my, I didn't hear anything about what was going on with Wes.
So-
Whenever one of the council members asked if we can get a report about where they were with that investigation, they said that's confidential. We can't do that. It's
So
an
you had
employee
been,
matter.
you'd been, oh,
Right.
really? Who told you that?
That was Heather's testimony at the city council meeting.
All right, well, she's not testifying at a council meeting, but I really appreciate you telling us that. So Heather
Well,
Phillips,
not testimony, but that was the statement she made to a council member that asked in open session, can we know what's happening with Wes?
and her statement, as best you recall, was,
He's still an employee, and that's an employee matter.
you've testified previously here today that you didn't have any idea that employee personnel matters would be confidential. Now you're saying that she said that at a council meeting, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Well, yeah.
Okay, so Heather Phillips was saying back in November of 2017, you guys can't have the investigation on Wes. It's none of your business. It's confidential, correct?
Right. At the same meeting,
Great.
you were saying, let's make this all public.
Great. Now,
Yeah.
we've got a highly confidential investigation. You've been told by the city attorney it's highly confidential in November of 2017.
Where are you getting that?
Didn't you just testify to that?
That it was highly confidential?
Didn't you just testify to that? In 2017, didn't Heather say that that's a confidential investigation and you're not entitled to it?
Well, yeah.
Thank you.
I don't think she will give a report before open session.
Thank you. Now,
So where'd you get highly confidential from? You just added that?
did you read the transcript?
No, you said that.
No, actually, you said that. Look at page 2 of the transcript. Line 16. You know, they're very confidential investigations. That's you, Carlton, not me. I wasn't.
What
meeting
line
with
are you on?
that day. Line 16. Read that out loud for the record, please.
You know those are very confidential investigations.
Okay, who's speaking there?
Me.
Thank you.
Where did you read highly?
Huh? Oh, very confidential. All right, very. Excuse me. Not highly, very, very
Yeah, because
confidential.
you're saying you said highly, and I'm like, no, I didn't say that.
There's a distinction in your mind between very confidential and highly confidential?
Yeah,
Okay, what's that distinction?
they're spelled different.
I'll grant you that. That's a good one. Aren't they functionally the same?
Well, I mean, to be in here, you said that I said highly, and
I thought you testified that that's what Heather Phillips said.
Well,
I could be
Heather-
wrong. We'd have to go back and look at the record.
One of the council members asked if we can be given an update of what was going on with Wes.
That was Jose Zagala.
Right.
And what do you recall her saying?
No, that it's an employee matter.
All right. So you knew that that investigation was something that you could not get access to because the city attorney said so at a council meeting in November, correct? Of 2017.
I don't know if I can get access to it or not. I wasn't trying to get access to it.
Well, Jose was.
The first time that I asked for this information, it was given to me. I didn't steal it from anyone.
Jose asked for the information
No,
at
I'm
the
not,
council meeting.
I don't understand where Jose thinks. You're asking me if I thought that.
Listen to my
I
question.
never asked for it. The very first time that I asked for it, I received it.
All right. Actually, the very first time that you asked for it, you asked Janice if she had it, and she said no, correct?
Right. I didn't ask her for it. I asked if she had it. And when she said no, why would I turn around and ask her for something she didn't have?
All right. So my question to you is this. Is it a fair statement that on November 6, 2017, consistent with your radio interview, it was your impression that any investigation of Chief Hensley was very confidential on that date? Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to ask you to now look at a document that we're going to mark as... Why don't we do this? You got 4 minutes left. Let's go off the record. He's got to change his tape, and then we'll come back.
This ends meeting number 1 in the deposition of Carlton Jones. We're off the record at 2:55.
We ready?
This begins meeting number 2 in the continuing deposition of Carlton Jones. We're on the record at 2:55.
Have you ever been told that as a city council member, you should not get involved in personnel actions at the city? Has anybody ever told you that?
Personnel actions meaning, what are you talking about?
I can't, I mean, if you don't understand the question, just tell me you
Give
don't
me an
understand.
example of a personnel action that you're talking about.
I'm just asking, are you to be involved in personnel actions? Are you to be involved in the hiring and
No.
firing of people?
No.
Are you to review their personnel files and make comments about them?
No.
Okay. So, give me an example of what you think, as a city council person sitting here today, you would be entitled to do with respect to personnel actions at the city, if anything.
Celebrate a promotion. Someone gets hurt, we show up to the hospital to support them. We have tons of employee appreciation events. We do badge pinnings and there's all kind of employee action.
Feel good stuff. We'll go be with people. I understand that, but I mean,
Help you feel good. Well, if someone gets hurt and you show up to support them, it's not really a...
you saw. I wouldn't call that a personnel action.
Yeah, I
I'm
wouldn't
surprised
call
it.
it
I wouldn't call it that. So
That's why I asked, what do you mean by
Well-
personnel action?
Well, most of us understand personnel actions, I think, to mean meddling in the affairs of the department. Okay? Have you ever meddled in the affairs of the department?
What do you mean?
I don't know. You ever gone to the city manager and said, I want somebody fired?
No.
You ever gone to the city manager and said, I want somebody hired?
Like, or give them a reference?
No. Like
No.
say, I want this person hired.
No.
You ever made any recommendations as to who they should hire?
No.
Have you ever complained about anybody that was hired by a city manager?
To a city manager?
Yes.
No.
Have you ever asked that anybody be fired?
No.
Have you ever made the statement that the city manager is going to clean house and you and Greg Nunley are going to find out, between the two of you, you're going to save people from being fired?
Have I ever made the statement that the city manager is going to clean house and that me and Nunley...
Let's take it one
No.
at a time. You ever made the statement to anybody that Joe Carlini was going to clean house?
No.
Did you see Joe Carlini before the council meeting the day that Wes was fired?
Yeah.
Were you at City Hall?
Uh-huh.
Did anybody observe you there?
Did anyone observe me at City Hall?
Yeah. Did you notice anybody look and see that you're there?
What? What do you mean? Did I notice anyone looking to see if I was at City Hall?
Did anybody see you? I mean, did
Of
you?
course people
okay,
saw me.
great. Did you have any interaction with Joe Carlini that day?
Anytime I'm at City Hall, and when Joe was the city manager, we'd have interaction. Other than that, I would be avoiding him, and I never avoided anyone.
Do you know why Joe Carlini would testify that he didn't see you until the council meeting that night?
No, I don't.
And let's look at Exhibit 22. This is another radio interview that you gave to K-Tip Radio on December 18, 2017. So this is the third radio interview that you've given between October 2 and December 18, and I'd like for you, if you would, to focus on page 3. Line 11. I'll read into the record. I think people have to understand that our form of government doesn't allow, we're not a strong mayor system. We're a strong city manager system. Our form of government doesn't allow the city council members, including myself as mayor, to be involved with personnel actions. Do you see that?
Yes.
Was that a true statement when you made it on December 18, 2017, as you understood it?
Yes.
And you recall making the statement?
Right.
Do you think that the release of the information to the press, particularly the McGinnis report, was injecting yourself into personnel actions?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Didn't it include witness statements by various witnesses?
Yeah, it did.
And you don't believe that when you go to the newspaper with confidential witness statements that you're involving yourself in personnel actions?
No.
All right.
So what would you...
I'm asking the questions. Sorry. Don't want to be rude, but you got to leave here in a minute, so I want to keep this moving. April 9, 2018, I'm marking as Exhibit 23, another radio interview that you gave to K-Tip Radio. This is a transcript of that interview. And Mario, I may have given you my copy. I gave somebody one with highlights on it. Has that one got highlights on it? I hope not. Oh, I've got it here. Okay. Yeah, I'd like for you, if you would, to go to page 6. Line 14. You say, it would be disrespectful for a council member to comment on the terms of anything about Wes's employment here with the City of Tulare. That's his personal information. Let's stop there. Was it your understanding that you should not comment on Wes's personal information on April 9 of 2018?
Yeah, and I tried not to.
Do you think that releasing the contents of Exhibit 17, which we've redacted,
Yeah.
do you think that releasing that to the press was commenting upon Wes's personal information?
Well, it was my understanding that that's what you guys wanted. And that's what Wes wanted.
Well, did you ever ask Wes?
Oh, I haven't talked to Wes since he left the city.
Did you ever ask me?
I don't talk to you since you became a snake.
Okay. So going on with page 6 of... No, I've forgotten the exhibit number. Is this 23, Mario?
No, the next one I think is 24.
24. This the one we're on. April of 18?
I have the April 9th, 18 is number 23.
Oh, 23. Thank you.
We're on 23?
Yeah, so Exhibit 23, which is the April 9 interview. Going on, you say on line 17, that's like someone came up at a council meeting and asked about his evaluation. No council member would know anything about an employee's evaluation. That's just not how the system works, or any system for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So on April 9 of 2018, was it your state of mind that as a council member you should not have any information regarding an employee's evaluation or any other personnel matters of that employee?
Per what you're reading here, I think it's pretty specific about an evaluation.
All right, so it's only the evaluation.
Well, in what you're mentioning,
I'm asking what your state of mind is. I'm not limiting it to what's on the interview. What was your state of mind in April of this year? If in April of this year you had stumbled upon the McGinnis report and you had stumbled upon the information contained in Exhibit 17, okay? Would you have felt like you could distribute that to the general public, to go to the newspaper, to go to Channel 30, without clearing that with the city attorney? Would you have felt entitled to do that?
Well, first of all, what I read in the email that Heather sent to me, it wasn't someone's personnel file. It wasn't a manager's evaluation of another employee. It was about the lies you were telling before council. And every time you would come up and say the public should know the truth, they couldn't take my word for it. And to me, that report tells the truth.
Well, one of the problems that we have here is that, from my perspective at least, is you're the only one who thinks you think is honest around here. Everybody's a liar. You're telling everybody. We got all this testimony out there that really goes against the narrative that you're trying to create, And you're
I'm not-
saying, well,
I'm
Chantel,
not-
now wait just a minute,
I'm not
Carlton.
trying to create a narrative.
I'm a snake and I'm a liar and I'm a big liar, but Chantel's a bigger liar. Matt Machado's a liar. Everybody's a liar in this thing. It's really, really difficult to pin you down.
No.
My question is simple.
Okay.
Would you have given the information, would you agree with me that the information contained in Exhibit 17, which was prepared by Heather Phillips, your personal friend, was not particularly, shall we say, favorable toward Wes? Would you agree with that?
Why would you say favorable?
Well, I just said it wasn't particularly favorable.
I think it was just a summary of what was going on. And until I read that, I had no idea.
Except that there's many things in there that aren't true.
Like,
So my question to you is, Exhibit 17, do you have in mind what those 12 pages looked like? Can you in your mind's eye, I don't want to put it in the record because I don't want to have all of this stuff as a matter of public record, but do you have in mind what Exhibit 17 contained? This email from Heather Phillips.
right. So it wasn't, what'd you say, 11 pages?
Well, it was actually 12.
Right. So it wasn't 12 pages. It wasn't in pages. It was the body of her email.
That's correct.
And I read it.
Yeah.
And
That email was...
then the testimonies from the different officers pretty much sums up what Heather's summary was. I mean, so I didn't read it as, right, what of this is a lie or what's the truth. That was her summary, and then I'm reading testimonies from different officers, and what part is a lie?
Well, you didn't see any testimony from Chief Hensley, did you?
No, I never.
Did that strike you as strange?
No.
Weren't you aware of the fact that the investigation against Chief Hensley was killed because John McGinnis, the investigator, communicated to Heather that they had nothing on the chief, that they
No.
couldn't fire him? You never heard that?
No.
Do you believe that to be true?
No.
Do you think John McGinnis would lie?
I've never met him or talked to him.
So if John McGinnis has testified in this proceeding that he told Heather Phillips that firing the chief would be indefensible, would you have any reason to doubt that that was said?
No.
Did you ask Heather why there was a decision made by somebody to stop the chief's investigation?
I didn't know anything about that.
Well, you knew he was being investigated,
Right?
and you knew that there was never an investigation. The McGinnis report didn't investigate the chief, did it?
I have no idea.
Well, you read it. You got it. You haven't read it?
To me, it's a lot of information about the chief.
Who are the subjects of the investigation?
What do you mean?
The McGinnis report was a report.
So a couple of times
Hold on. The McGinnis report was a report that related to charges of misconduct against 2 members of the department, correct?
I don't know. That's not what I asked for, and that's not what I was looking for when I read the report. And in one of the interviews, it didn't talk about the other 2 officers. It talked about Wes. And at the end of the interviews, it would read that this, the rest of this is terminated because Wes was fired. That's what I would see.
Did John McGinnis make any findings against Wes Hensley?
What do you mean?
Did he make any adverse findings against Hensley?
I don't know if that what he was doing or not. I never talked to John McGinnis.
You read the report.
Right.
All right. Was there anything in the report that led you to believe that John McGinnis made an adverse finding against the chief?
Well, if he found the information that was in the report, yeah, that's pretty adverse.
But he...
You mean, did he make a recommendation to the
Yes.
city manager?
Yes.
No, I didn't see any of that in the
All
report.
right. So all you have is you've got witness statements that may be true or may not be true.
Correct.
You don't know.
Nope.
And John McGinnis doesn't say anything in the report about who he believes, does he?
No.
But you just go out and you submit this to Channel 30 News and Luis Hernandez over at the Times Delta, correct?
I never gave it to Luis.
Oh, you were going to give it to him. You
Right.
never. Okay. All right. And all this was done because you got the green light to do so from Mario Zamora, correct?
I didn't get the red light.
Well, let's test your memory here.
So
Remind me of what you asked and what Mario said that led you to believe that you could distribute this to the press. What did you ask?
I asked if I can share this information.
And what did he say?
Yes.
Isn't that a green light?
Well, I mean, I didn't.
How much more? What in your mind? If
Well, yeah,
that's
to me, that's I didn't ask Mario. You made it sound like I asked Mario, "Could I give this to Channel 30?" Or no, I just asked if I can distribute this, and he said
okay.
yes.
So if you ask to distribute something and he says yes, in your mind, that's not a green light, but it's not a red light.
Well, I mean, I didn't have a list of people I was going to give it to. I mean, I hadn't even talked to Sharon by then. But in my mind, I had a right to me, it was public record by then.
Do you think anybody in that room is going to back up what you just testified to?
What do you mean?
You testified that there were other people in the room where you asked Mario Zamora if you could share this information being the McGinnis report and Heather Phillips' 12-page communication to John McGinnis about the chief.
Well,
Just a minute. And Mario Zamora said yes. Do you think anybody in that room is going to back you up?
Do I think they're going to back me?
Yeah, because I think everybody's going to say that that's just complete nonsense. That's what I think.
That's what you think, and I think different.
Okay. So what do you think about everybody in the room? Think they're going to back you up?
I'm not looking for them to back me up. I don't need their backup.
All right. So if everybody says it didn't happen, but Carlton says it did happen, what does that mean? What do you think the average person's going to conclude?
So everybody would have to testify that, yeah.
Everybody's going to testify.
He handed me the report. I made 5 copies, and I handed them to every council member in that room.
Mario handed you the report?
No.
All right.
Mario didn't hand me the report.
You said he handed me the report. Oh, you mean you handed the report. I'm sorry.
Right.
Okay. All right. Everybody's going to testify that you handed them the report.
Yes.
That's fine.
Right.
That's not my question.
Later, we weren't in the closed session meeting. I sat with Willard in his office, and I handed him the report.
Okay.
So are you asking if...
I'm asking you if anybody...
they're going to say that they heard me ask Mario?
Yes.
I don't know if they heard me ask him.
Okay.
But before I handed them the reports, I asked Mario, is it all right if I share this information? And when he said yes, I proceeded to pass it out. And at no time did anyone say, you can't be sharing that information. Or it's okay to share it with council members, but you can't share it with anybody else.
Now go back to Exhibit 16 for a minute, which is the letter I sent you yesterday. You have it in front of you?
Yes.
Can you look at page 2, please? If you look at the bold print, there's 4 bullet points. You see those? Look at item number 2. The city has demanded that Jones immediately surrender or destroy all copies of the report, whether in electronic form or hard copy. Has that demand been made upon you?
No.
It hasn't.
A demand to destroy, No. Who would make that demand? Who's the city? Who are you talking about?
Anybody at the city?
No. Who are you? You said
Any?
that. Okay, so let me finish.
Sure.
Here it says the city has demanded that Jones immediately. Who are you talking about when you say the city?
That's irrelevant. Has the city made that demand upon you?
Who would be the city? How is that irrelevant?
The city attorney, the city manager, anybody at
Okay,
the
so
city.
I've
the
never-
HR director.
I haven't. The only person I talked to was Mario.
And Mario has not demanded that you immediately surrender or destroy all copies of the report, correct?
I'm gonna pull up the email that I got from Mario. Per our conversation last night, please immediately remove the documents you posted on Facebook from the McGinnis report. Those are confidential and personal. Those are confidential personal documents. Those documents are not to be released in any capacity to anyone. Council is allowed to view those, but as you recall, we were in closed session related to the Hensley matter, which is why it was okay to view them in that setting. They are not for public distribution.
All right. So, you've
where-
retained...
So let's hold on.
Yeah.
I want to be clear
Sure.
of what you wrote. So you're saying Mario is the city, and where is the demand for me to destroy
Hey.
all?
Just a minute.
That is not the conclusion of the email.
Oh, sorry. You should not maintain copies, electronic or otherwise.
Why didn't you read that sentence?
Oh, I didn't finish. So is that the demand?
Time out. Yeah, I think normal people would
Okay.
figure out that's a demand, but why did you stop and not read the most important sentence and
Well, I
make,
just had to scroll
and make
up
the
to
city and make it was just a screw up?
No, I just,
That wasn't intentional.
right. Well, when he said there's more, I just
Yeah.
scrolled up and was like, yeah, there's one more sentence.
Okay, so this wasn't intentional on
No.
your part. You weren't trying to mislead me or anything.
No.
Okay, so now that we've got this straight, and the city attorney has helped you understand the full nature of the communication, has that demand been made upon you?
Right. So
And have you-
Well, let me.
Yeah.
I'll read you my response to him.
Yeah.
I took them down yesterday, but as I recall, you saying that there was nothing in those reports, and I then asked if they were public record, and if I could have them. You said yes. At the next closed session, I passed out copies to all the council members, and you said nothing. Yesterday, I reminded you of this. You told me that you take full responsibility. It's clear in the officer's testimony that Wes was not investigating my credit card purchase. It's clear that he was not directed. He used the city resources for his personal reason. Now, some people save screenshots of my posts and send them around to others. There's nothing I can do about that, but I removed the images yesterday.
That was your email to Mr. Zamora.
Yes.
Word.
And then his was, thank you. I remember differently, but reasonable people can disagree. I take full responsibility if you think I told you they were public documents, but that is definitely not the case.
All right, so Mario has already put at issue your testimony here today that he gave you the green light, I'll use that phrase, to basically distribute the documents we've been talking about. Is that correct? Mario's already disputed what you've said in an email. You just read the email into the
Right.
record. All right, I want a copy of that, all that email exchange, so would you make that available to me, please?
Do I have to make that, give him our email?
You read it into the record, I mean...
Then there's your copy.
No, I want the copy, because you've already kind of read parts of email, but not the whole thing, and I want to make sure I'm getting the full picture, and the written form is better for me, so I would like for you to, I'll just ask you to produce it. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, it took a while to get there, but I guess the bottom line is the city has demanded that you surrender or destroy all copies of the report. Isn't that true?
I think he asked me about it.
Yeah. No, they
Yeah.
asked you to
Mario
destroy.
asked me.
Yes.
Right.
The city attorney has asked you
Right, the city
to
attorney.
destroy or surrender all copies,
Right.
electronic or otherwise, right?
Right.
Okay, but you haven't done that, have you?
Well, they have emails. That's what. What do you mean?
You haven't destroyed the copies, have you?
The paper copies? Yes, I don't have them.
All right. The paper copy. When was the last time you had a paper copy?
I destroyed them all yesterday.
All yesterday. How did you destroy them?
I shredded them and ripped them up.
Okay. Look at the next bullet point, item 3. City demanded that Jones immediately take down his Facebook post. You've admitted that they asked you to do that, correct?
Mario asked me to do that.
And
Yes.
did you comply?
I took it down before his email.
Why did you take it down before his email?
I talked to one of the old police officers union president.
Who was that? James Kelly?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Why'd you talk to Kelly?
What do you mean? Why did I talk to him?
Yeah, why'd you call him?
I got a call from the interim city manager.
That'd be Rob Hunt?
Uh-huh.
When did you get that?
On Tuesday, around 4:30 p.m.
And what did Rob Hunt tell you?
He told me that there was an issue with the posts that that some officers complained about one of my Facebook posts, and he asked if I would call Mario, and he sent me Mario's number, and I called Mario, and then he called me back, and then on my way to the city council meeting, I called James Kelly.
Why did you call Kelly?
Because I didn't have the number to the new president of the Fire Officers Union.
Why would we want to call the president of the Fire Officers Union?
I mean,
the
not
police
the
officers?
Police Officers Union.
Why were you going to call the Police Officers Union?
Because the conversation I had with Rob Hunt was that police officers had an issue.
All right. And who did he say, did he identify the officers that had an issue?
No.
Do you recall anything else that Rob Hunt told you?
No, he asked if I would call Mario.
What did you tell James Kelly when you had him on the phone?
I asked James Kelly, I said, hey, I got a message from our city manager that some of the police officers had an issue with my post. And he said, yeah, some of them have been calling me. And he said, hey, you know that those are confidential and protected testimony. And I told him I didn't know that.
Well, you told us in a radio interview that you knew it a year earlier, didn't you?
We're talking about the information from the report.
Yeah, didn't you use the word very confidential? I'm sorry.
I hadn't even seen the report back then.
No. Didn't you though say that this kind of stuff was very confidential back in the radio interview that we went over earlier?
Well, I'm specifically talking about the report now.
Okay, but Carlton, come on, give me a break.
I get what you're trying to do, but
You're doing this to yourself.
No,
you knew this was confidential stuff.
No, I didn't.
You didn't.
No, I wouldn't.
Absolutely didn't know.
No,
Okay.
I thought this was the the information that you guys would want.
And then Rob Hunt comes out. Why would, first of all, what did your Facebook post? Whose statement did you post? Was it Wes's?
There wasn't a statement.
That's correct. There never was a statement. Was it my statement?
No.
Whose was it?
A couple of the officers.
No, it was one officer, Jake Adney, right? You posted two?
No, there was other testimony. Hold on, I gotta answer my son.
Okay, we can go off the record.
Off the record at 3:24.
You know.
We're back on the record at 3:25.
All right, we're going to continue the deposition. Mr. Jones has to leave for personal reasons. What I'm going to do is we'll work with Mr. Zamora to get another date. Mr. Jones, I'm going to need you here for a full day next time so that we can knock this off. We're going to be in this for quite a while, I think. So I'd like for you to communicate with Mr. Zamora get a date when you're available and you can be here at 9 o'clock in the morning. Fair enough?
I'll try my best.
Okay, well, you're under subpoena, so try your best. Fair?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
This concludes Volume 1 of the deposition of Carlton Jones. Total number of video